These are some of the major projects in the long-range plan. And so you can see, like, we're really connecting to each other, constituents, residents, public. They don't know where the jurisdiction line is. They don't know where those boundaries are. They just keep driving and they don't care if it's the state responsibility or the county's responsibility or the city's responsibility. But we do have these big projects that cross intersections. So the next one is a little bit of a close-up. You might be familiar with some of these roads, 281, we're planning a second access, Outer Parkway, there's the International Bridge Trade Corridor. I know we have different Mercedes and over there, but ultimately, yeah, that's right. The fatalities is why we're here today. On a year-by-year basis, Texas has the highest crash fatalities by year. And so in 1981, we had 4,700 fatalities. And we were able to reduce 4,700 to 4,400 in 1980. And then in 1982, 4,200, 79, 78. You can see these like really lower numbers. And maybe you think like, oh, 4,400 to 4,700 isn't too bad. But that's 300 lives, 250 lives, right? And so that's really why it's so important. It's not just a number, it's an individual. And so we are looking here at these fatalities. When we look year by year, we're increasing. Texas fatality is increasing, we're not decreasing. And so it's 15% statewide, but border districts, El Paso, Laredo, and the Rio Grande Valley are seeing an increase in fatalities by 46%. And that's a problem. Did I miss one or not? Yeah. Sorry. So the next one is about border districts. You can see overall we have a huge percentage. Then El Paso, Laredo, and FAR. Unfortunately, in the latest year, FAR is winning. We're losing lives. And so this increase, again, on a state level 15, on a border level 46. And so we're just going to go through some different statistics here that I want to share. We have different type of crash types. I know you all do some reporting on that. And so these crash types, we're going to go over type by type and talk about these fatalities that are occurring. So for work zone crashes, the FAR district saw 3 fatalities in 2021, which is a drop down from 2020, but an increase from 2019. And on a state level, we are increasing in work zone fatalities. So, next one is speed related, and we have 55 fatalities from speed related crashes. And so that is a huge jump, 25, right? Individuals, more people. On a state level, they're increasing by 8%, but on a district level, 57%. And so that is a significant jump, and we need to address it. So besides speed, the next one that we have is DUI. And so statewide, we see a decrease, but on the border districts, we see an increase by 59%. And in the FAR district specifically, we see a huge jump from 27 to 43 DUI related crashes. So did this also FAR district alcohol related? It still says DUI, so 36, it's jumped up from 64% by 14 compared to 2020 on a border district level. So we're just comparing our region to the district and then to other border districts and on the state level. You're going to see this over and over again. Motorcyclists, there's been an increase on a state level by 7%, but in border district, 150%. So we saw 5 in the FAR district, which again is a drop down from 2018, but 3 more lives lost from the last year. And so unrestrained fatalities, which I can just hear my mom, right? Put your seatbelt on. So that we're seeing increases in 58%. That is a huge jump from 33 to 52. And so there's different reasons why these fatalities are occurring on our roads, but they're all issues that we need to be addressed. And so this is commercial motor vehicles involved fatalities, another increase on a statewide and FAR district level. And then this is where we'll take a moment because we're here to focus on bicycle and pedestrian, my vulnerable road users. And so on a statewide level, we've seen an increase here of pedestrian fatalities by 15%. and bicycle fatalities by 42%. And overall in the district, we lost 31 pedestrian lives in 2021 and 3 cyclist lives in 2021 in just the FAR district alone, right? The small area of Texas. So that's what we're going to focus on today, is increasing a little bit of pedestrian and cyclist fatalities, decreasing them. But overall, the FAR district is reviewing all of the fatality reports. So those reports that are submitted, that maybe it's an investigator or the first person on the scene, all that data does get utilized and it goes into a system, and specifically fatality reports are reviewed quite thoroughly. And I'll explain why. But in May and August alone of last year, there was 16 fatalities on the road. On a monthly average, 10 fatalities a month. I don't know if you're like me, I'm a Brownsville native. I'm from the Valley, right? I have family living in Edinburgh, McAllen, La Feria, Mission, and it's, 24 aunts and uncles, 36 cousins. And so when I see these numbers, I worry about my family and their friends and my friends and their family. So moving forward, this is the mission. You're going to hear Road to Zero and End of Streak a lot. This is our goal, and we want to jump on the state bandwagon and work with them to help reduce serious injuries and fatalities over time. You saw how we're tracking this year by year. A personal goal of mine is to keep coming back to you all year after year with these statistics, and hopefully in 5 years' time, we're seeing those numbers drop, and we're working on that Road to Zero and to end the streak, at least hopefully on the district level. And so because it's so serious here, the FAR district has the second highest rate of fatalities in the state of Texas, next to the Houston Metro. And so you all know how big Houston is and how populated it is. And so for us to be in second place next to Houston is a pretty serious concern, one that is being looked at on a federal and state level. Like you mentioned, our Texas Transportation Commission is asking transportation officials to look more deeper into this. So just go back a little, so we're gonna, the district traffic safety team, they meet monthly, and this is where all those fatal reports are reviewed. Miguel and I have sat in on some. We're addressing those issues with opportunities. We're always talking about the 3 E's of traffic safety, which is engineering. A lot of people, and most of the people in those meetings are engineers. So they're saying, oh, strike, the fresh paint, or the curb and gutter was clear, or the light wasn't working, the utility. But they're kind of responsible to make sure, was that pavement in good condition? Was there an issue on the road or in the design? I know we're talking about speed, reducing speed because of the speed-related fatalities on our state roads. But overall, education is something that the FAR district is picking up. My coworkers and I were just talking about in Trenton and McAllen, they're hiring pedestrians to walk around with billboards on their back that have the rules of the road. You might have seen a billboard in Primera, I think like a little bit north of Harlingen or northwest. And so I've been seeing more also, I guess maybe because I follow some cycling groups and some like walking clubs, I'm seeing more ads tailored to me, targeted to me on Facebook and on my social media account from TxDOT promoting education for the public. But enforcement is kind of another reason why we're here. You all have such a hard duty. The rule book is so big and you respond to so many calls. But what could we do that could possibly save a life, right? Moving on, we have these fatality statistics like I've been talking about. We were looking calendar year to calendar year from 2021 to 2022. This was from the July 25th meeting to July 25th, 2021. And we are on track to have the same amount of fatalities this year. We're not reducing, we're not increasing, but it seems as far as the number of fatalities go, there hasn't been an improvement for what we'd like to see. So moving on, that's kind of why, we review these fatality reports. We go into them, what was the reason? How old were they? Was the injury severe? Et cetera, et cetera. Go to the next slide. I know we really look at your, what are they called? With, diagram. We really look at those diagrams and we really do read those narratives and we break it down in these fatality, and I call them fatality meetings, but district traffic safety team meetings. And so after we review the diagram and the narrative, we look at projects, is what has been done recently on those roads. Was it improved? What kind of improvements were made? What year were those improvements made? And then what's coming up? What's future opportunities? Hey, come on in. There's a sign in, there's an agenda and stuff, help truck to water. But if we do have some future projects coming up, then we like to find opportunity to add to the project that maybe improves safety. And again, we discuss these E's of traffic safety before we kind of continue. And we go through each report. So some months it was like 5 fatalities, another month it was 8 fatalities. You saw the average is 10. But let's move forward. I just wanted to kind of show you how those are working. So over here, I'll take over the little thing. We're gonna go to that link. Perfect. So here in this part of the session, I want to go over the Texas Strategic Highway Safety Plan. How many of you have heard of the Strategic Highway Safety Plan? No? Perfect. A lot of new information, right? That's exciting. So yeah, perfect. Okay. So I really wanted to show you this overall. The website is under maintenance. Good to know. If you look at this, I don't want to like mess with it because it's a slow internet. But the Strategic Highway Safety Plan, I'll share these links out. It's also at the bottom of your agenda over here. The link, and I'll email them out. I'll be emailing resources and stuff that I talk about after the fact. But there's different categories. There's the speeding. There's other countermeasures. There's a lot going on this website, and it really allows you to see what Texas is planning and what they're funding, more importantly, in order to decrease fatalities and in order to address the issue. So I'll just read this. Crashes with pedestrians are a concern, given that pedestrians are more likely to sustain fatal or severe injuries. Again, they call them vulnerable road users in the transportation code. But this emphasis area, there are different strategies and projects areas. So I'd love to show you each little tab because there's some really good data here about contributing factors and where crashes occur and the demographics. Actually, the demographics is really interesting. I used to bike in college for a few years, and my mom would always be like, text me when you get there. Let me know where you're going. Like, she was always worried about me getting hit and making it to my destination. Probably because she knew I was young. And like, I don't know, I had my headphones on and stuff like that. So she was always really, really concerned. And I remember telling her, like, I don't know, Mom, I think they give me more space because I'm a female, because I'm a girl. Like, I don't feel like cars are all over me, but I would see men cycling ahead of me and cars would get like a lot closer to the guys. But if you look at the demographic data, which we won't click, I'm afraid it won't load. It does kind of prove my point. There's way fewer females getting hit for fatalities and serious injuries than there are men. And I found that very interesting. But overall, there are 6-7 strategies here that TxDOT is recommending to reduce fatalities. Again, there are other areas outside of the pedestrian safety that we could look at, but I'm just focusing for today on pedestrian safety. So the number 1 strategy is improve driver and pedestrian safety awareness and behavior. So Texas Department of Transportation is doing that with that campaign that I just mentioned, getting us some more materials to distribute. And so they're trying to have these targeted ads on social media as well. But the second strategy is reduce pedestrian crashes on urban arterials and local roadways. So that one we discussed, how do we address that issue, urban arterials, local roadways. If you're unaware, right, there's state roads and these local roads. So something we're doing in addition to law enforcement training is we're having a similar training, but tailored for project managers, for planners and for engineers. So we can talk about these urban arterials, and we can talk about these local roadways and some design strategies that would make the roads safer. I know here in Harlingen, y'all's roads are so huge. And if I was walking across, I'm not sure I'd make it in one light. You know what I mean? I'd be like, oh no, I'm never gonna make it.
So it's a little bit dangerous having these super wide streets and trying to get people to cross. I promise you, people that are crossing those streets probably don't want to be walking, but they probably had no choice and have to walk to get to where they need to be. But the number 3 strategy is to improve pedestrian visibility at crossing locations. So that's something I know that the state officials are looking at, those utilities, looking at their lights. But I think we could do better as a citizen or as local agencies to identify street lights, particularly in dangerous intersections, where maybe we need to bring it to the utility attention that those lights are out, that could cause an issue. Most of our fatalities occur at night. And so we did purchase some lights, which everybody will be getting today. They're for cyclists, but of course pedestrians could use them too, to just increase visibility over time. But number 4 is improve pedestrian networks. A little bit later in the agenda, I'm going to talk about our active transportation network, and I'll show you all kind of what we're trying to build and what that network currently looks like right now for cyclists and pedestrians. But the number 5 is improve pedestrian involved crash reporting. And that's where you all come in. When it comes to pedestrian-related crashes, I believe, and we'll talk about the laws and the regulations, reports are not required unless there's like $1,000 worth of damage or something like that. And so we have a hard time tracking crash reporting when there's pedestrian involved. Because if it's a light crash or if it's something small, it doesn't report it. And if it's more serious, they usually end up in a hospital, or unfortunately, it turns into a fatality like we saw earlier today. So number 6 is establish vehicle operating speeds to decrease crash severity. That's a tough one. And then number 7 is strategic pedestrian safety plans tailored to local conditions. So the MPO is hopefully applying to a federal grant called Safe Streets for All. I believe we apply or submit this week or this month, but it should create a comprehensive action plan for the region for improving safety. So as you can see, we're taking our job pretty seriously. And I just kind of wanted to dive into this just to show you all. Oh, that didn't do so bad. So here are the other sections here: distracted driving, intersection safety, impaired driving, older road users, speeding, etc. So I won't go through all the data and everything, but I do want to show you another resource. And I promise I'll be quick because yesterday I went over a little. So I won't do that to you today. So this document that's coming up, it is called it is the State of Texas Instructions to Police for Reporting Crashes, the 2022 edition. Have any of you heard of this guidance? It's new. It's from 2020, June or July of 2022. It's 170 pages. So like no blame to you guys if you haven't checked it out. I'm not going to make you go through it page by page today. But we're going to go through a section of contributing factors. So this is what that document looks like. Again, it was recently published. It's 170 pages. It has some really good information for your CFR3, your Form CR3 reporting. So I'm going to go to the overview. Let me just zoom in. Perfect. Okay. So this is a vital document used to the collection of crash data by law enforcement throughout the state of Texas. You do not be afraid that everybody from yesterday's training, also all 13 agencies, had not heard of this document. So I will take it upon myself to make sure I share this with everybody as a resource. But this is basically to improve the data collection, because as I mentioned to you, hopefully the data you all submit is used and does affect how we program funding and where funding gets programmed to improve safety in our communities. But that's basically the quick overview. I'm pretty sure you all had to. Is there anyone who hasn't filled out one of these forms before? Can I ask you all a question? How do you all get trained on filling out these reports right now? And we'll go agency by agency, so Mercedes. Do you get trained like on the job training? Yeah. It's just you follow somebody else's lead?
Yeah, just follow.
Follow. And you? Same? So is zero. So so it's you. But is there like an academy I'm not really sure how it works. I'm so sorry. But do they like train in the academy, like form reporting or data collection? Not on the forms? Okay. And obviously this is specific, it's for transportation related crashes, right? So what I understood from yesterday's 13 agencies is also that everybody seems to do things their own way, fill it out their own way. So it seems to be a pretty long form as far as like what you could potentially submit. But as I had shown you all earlier, it is looked at. We do review them. And when it comes, I won't like go into like a regular day-to-day crash with motor vehicles. But what I did want to touch base on for pedestrian and cyclist related fatalities, or even motorists, just fatalities in general, we'll just generalize it. When it comes to reporting and there's fatalities involved, the more information you can give, the better. On these state roads, these contributing factors, I went into it a little too deep yesterday, so I'll save you all that. But there's a section in the form that allows you to submit contributing factors. And number one should be like the main reason, like maybe it was raining or flooded, right? Like wet road conditions or something. Number two could be someone failed to yield. Number three could be distracted driving, right? But you're supposed to kind of put in those numbers based on the investigator or the reporting officer's own opinion, basically. And so there are different codes here related to this. There's a whole bunch of contributing factors, and I'll try to like zoom in a little better. But animal on the road, followed too closely, had been drinking. I'm sure you all are familiar a little bit with this. But there's some additional rules here for like how you submit your contributing factors. But it's kind of what I covered in the short. So factor one must be populated before factor two, et cetera, et cetera. And then all of these must be attributed to the power unit when it involves a cyclist or pedestrian, right? So a motor vehicle, I think over like a non-motorized individual or person. So I just really wanted to share that as a resource. Obviously it's 170 pages and we could get deeper and deeper into it. Perfect. We could get deeper and deeper into it, but overall, I guess, I'm trying to see if I could get some on-the-job training for CR form reporting, because I don't know how to better, we talked a little bit about how we're regionalizing some of this efforts for reducing serious injuries and fatalities. And so I'll talk to you about some network information, but ideally we kind of, over the long term, not like tomorrow, but in a couple of years, standardize the way that we review some of this reporting on a regional basis. So that way, right, standardize it on a regional scale through the areas that we work in, at least on an MPO metropolitan area before we kind of go district-wide. But if we could create some more or increase the standardization over time, that would be great for us as the transportation officials who review these documents, and to kind of identify where the problem areas really are. And so again, I know your jobs are tedious, you have to do a lot, and maybe there's a lot of paperwork or a lot of contributing factors. But over time, I think we'll likely be getting law enforcement officials like together year after year and then increase that over time. No, this is the vulnerable road users. So I think before we get into this, let's go to the Mentimeter. Yeah, if you have a question, I'm so sorry. If y'all have a question in the room.
I think what I have seen from some of the other guys, go back and you're going to do a refresh report. The faults or the errors or the recommendations come at the end when you're closing out. I
know what you're reading.
So if it would walk you through the form and then maybe have the question during the process, that might get them to read it faster, or at least read it and then make that recommendation or that change. Because at the end, it's just submit without errors or submit without warnings. They use it.
Yeah, right.
So Does cut.
So on a state level, I should change that? I should just go change those to three?
Take
Oh, you know, I actually can do that.
We'll do it the same.
I mean, there's two paths forward. It's like either it's gonna take me years to do it on a local level, or it's gonna take me years to change it at the state level, but I'll tell you what, I'm committed to the change, okay? So we'll try it out. Are there any other questions though before we get started? Y'all have comments? Okay, I could bother you all to pick up your phones and to go to menti.com. There's a code there at the top, and we're gonna quiz you. And it's anonymous. You're gonna be like a little raccoon or something. But if you could just do it, we're just kind of gonna gauge the room. Menti.com, MENTI.com. And the code is 11084337. Do we have people? How do we know? I'm gonna check. Okay, perfect. Look, y'all are populating. Somebody's a soccer ball, somebody's a penguin, somebody's a little fishy. We don't know. We don't know who's who. Menti, M-E. Oh yeah, it's 110843. 1108 4337. Perfect. Okay. Somebody's an angel. Who's an angel here? All right. A donut. We got a bee, little bumblebee. Okay, I think we can get started if you didn't sign up. You can still join us. The code is at the top and the website's there. But we'll go to the first question. What traffic laws apply to cyclists? And you'll have some options. Only specific bike laws, the same laws that apply to an operator of a motor vehicle, or I'm not sure. We'll give you some time. Everyone has voted. Wow, good job, guys. All right, the correct answer is the same laws that apply to an operator of a motor vehicle. Good job. All right, next question. Go. Is there a state law prohibiting riding a bicycle or an electric bicycle on the sidewalk? I feel like I need some background. All right, we got, I love this. There's like a mix. All right, let's find out what's the correct answer. No, there is no state law prohibiting bicycles or electric bicycles on sidewalks. So we'll go into it. I'm gonna give you all a 5-minute break for this pop quiz, and then we'll go into kind of a little bit of laws and regulations. Next question. Are pedestrians allowed to walk on the roadway or in a bike lane? Yes, all the time. No, a pedestrian may not walk along or on the roadway if an adjacent sidewalk is provided and is accessible, or I'm not sure. All right, everybody voted and everybody got the correct answer. Good job, T. I know, it's always good to get one right. When is it allowable for a cyclist to take the lane, ride as near as practical to the right curb or edge of the roadway? And there's a lot of words, it's a little blurry, so. All right, we still need some more. They will tell us when you've all answered. Up there, yeah, metal. How's everybody? We need one more for the we have 8 of you. What do we have 7? No, that's all right. So the answer is all of the above. So even the airline, it's all of them, which good job, guys. So when is a crash report required? You all know.
This is an open-ended.
Yeah, it's open-ended. As soon as possible, okay.
Okay, big ones.
Copy paste for that. 10 days, okay. That's when it's required, yeah. You guys are hilarious. All right, let's fast forward. All right, we'll go over it, but rate the importance of the following, Fable. Oh yeah, you got a new one when the damage is $1,000. Engineering, rate the importance of the following. How important is engineering to education and enforcement when it comes to traffic safety? All right, this is kind of similar to yesterday's, right? Education came in at number 5, enforcement at 4.9, and engineering at 4.6. And I think we have 8 of you responding, so that's pretty good. And you're right, I mean, they're all pretty important and depend on the situation or the contributing factor. But a lot of times, education is the best place in my mind to start, right? If I didn't know, or I mean, I feel like the statistics and stuff are staggering, but do we have a last question? Share any ideas you have to improve cyclist and pedestrian safety. And so I know yesterday we talked about bike rodeos, or we talked about driver education, you know, when they're getting their license. There were a couple of different ideas, but maybe in your communities, what you see, you know, what do you think would help improve bicyclists and pedestrians? Some people said like stay in all the bike lanes, right? I saw there were a couple of interesting answers. Stay off the road, similar. Driver education. That's another thing I'm addressing at the state level. There. Bicycle events in the schools, get the word out, education. We'll just wait for like 2 more of you to respond. Maybe at least 1 more, so we can have like a nice little 6. Bicycle rodeo, yeah. Awareness of ordinances and laws, thank you. And I think that's very specific. So that's the end of our presentation. We'll give everyone a 5-minute break or so. If y'all don't mind, yeah, just take a break for like 5:20. There's some water here. I should have refrigerated that, I forgot. But if y'all just take a break, we'll be right back. I just don't want to be like chewing your ear off and also need water. this is the Texas Department of Transportation, the website. They have this Stay Safe website where they have like the laws and regulations for safety, but for bicyclists and pedestrian safety, we're going to review, you know, what traffic laws apply to cyclists. That's what the questions we ask, and which ones do not. Generally speaking, bikes are entitled to all rights as a motor vehicle. Bicycle means a device that a person may ride that is capable of being ridden solely using human power and has 2 tandem wheels, which is more than 14-inch in diameter. I like to joke about this. The children's bikes are 12 inches in diameter. Please do not give them citations just because they're on the street or in the neighborhood. But 14 or up, the average bicycle tire size is about 26 inches. So that's average. You'll see bigger, you'll see smaller. But this, you know, this also includes an electric bike. This is something that's recently been discussed and talked about on the statewide Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee. And we're kind of talking about how do we allow motor scooters, like scooters, motorized scooters, and these new electric bicycles, which are all the rage, especially in like the Austin areas. With the hills and stuff. Luckily, we're like in flatland over here, so I don't see too many. But I'm from the Brownsville area. I don't see any Brownsville PD. But I know there's this guy that he comes out of International, like he's crossing the border, but he zooms on an electric bicycle in the shoulders at like 30 miles per hour. And it's quite impressive, but I feel like he falls in this gray area of the law, you know, for like being on the shoulder, but also being a motorized vehicle. So it's something we talked about, but unless a specific statutory right or duty is altered in the Texas Transportation Code, or a right or duty applicable to a driver cannot by its nature apply to a person operating a bicycle, then the same laws apply as a motor vehicle. So we'll kind of fast forward through all of this. Basically, this is all of Texas Transportation Code. I'll stop at can you go up a little bit? With the hand signals, bicycles must use hand signals to signal their intent to stop, to turn left. Can you zoom in a bit? Sorry. And then the bicycle must use the following signs. So I think this is something that we could do better on as far as education goes in our communities. I like I mentioned, I had biked to college for a couple of years. I like to tell this story. I was on International driving towards Southwest Boulevard, and I'm going straight, right? I'm in a designated bike lane. There's markings on the street. There's signage on the side of the road. I'm in a white shirt. My bicycle has the front white light, the rear red light. So I'm like, I'm gravy. I'm following all the laws. I'm not using my hand signals because I'm not turning. I'm going straight. But there was a vehicle that passes me and turns right in front of me. And it was to the point where the curb is here, the car is here, and I get to stick my tire right in between that curb and that car. And my thighs just clean that vehicle off. All that dust right there. You could just see it just cleaned her car off. And I'm slow motion falling into the gravel of the corner over here because it's a curb, right? And so I'm just literally like my thighs over here, my head's falling down. And there was thankfully a police unit about 2 or 3 cars behind that saw that motor vehicle turn. I don't even think they had signals while I was going straight. So he had someone in his unit. He wasn't going to be able to stay, but he called back up and he told the motor vehicle to wait there for me to wait on the curb until backup came. And so luckily it's Southmost and there's a little substation. So it's pretty quick. Somebody came over, they checked on me, and he's like, "You okay? Do you need medical assistance?" And I was like, "I'm okay." It was like slow motion fall, luckily, you know. And he said, "You need to be careful. They can hit you. Gotta like get off the road." And I was like, I was like, I'm in a white shirt. I'm in designated bike lane. I'm like, I know how to use my hand signals. You know, I'm not turning. That car wasn't even using their signal. And I really dislike it when I see law enforcement not using their signals. I'm like, I need to know where to turn. I need to know. But basically, that officer that was helping me out, you know, he was checking on me. He did care. But when he told me to be careful, I said, the reason why you're not putting me in an ambulance right now is because I was paying attention. It is because I was being careful and I was aware of it. And the person you need to tell to be careful and to look out is the motorist, is the driver. And so he kind of was a little bit surprised, you know, but I was like, yeah, I know my Texas Transportation Code, sir. And, you know, I know that I wasn't at fault here. And I think because it was like, there was no injury over 1,000, there was no damage, that was significant, thankfully. My bike wasn't that banky for me to claim, but ultimately that driver also just got a warning. There was no citation or charge on their end. But I think it was kind of an enlightening moment for both of us to kind of know, oh yeah, it's not always who we think's at fault here. And yes, I mean, I am on the road as a vulnerable bike user on a very heavily trafficked road. But I think I know my hand signals, that's something that I see all the time. It's very important to communicate with other vehicles on the road. And so every bike must be equipped with a brake capable of making a skid on dry, level, clean pavement. If you have had me at your bike rodeo or at your national night out, I like to do these the ABCs of your bike check. And A is for air, B is for brakes, C is for chain. And so you always want to make sure that those brakes work. There's some cruiser bikes that they have the reverse pedaling that creates that brake. There's the front brake for your front wheel and the rear brake for your rear wheel. So as long as one of those brakes is working and can stop that bicycle, then it's street safe. And so they really say in the Texas Transportation Code, a person cannot operate a bicycle at nighttime unless that bicycle is equipped with the following: either a headlamp on the front of the bicycle, which emits a white light visible from at least 500 feet, which is why we're giving you all bike lights to distribute, and then a red reflector or a red lamp, and that's for the rear side. So again, something that we're always carrying. When we talk about fatalities and serious injuries, a lot of them happen at night. So I think this is one of the really critical ones for enforcement. Hopefully more education before enforcement, but something that you can communicate to and hopefully have the resources to help out those individuals who, again, there are a lot of recreational cyclists, but a lot of them are using a bicycle for necessity for transportation. But I won't go too hard. We'll go to the next one. Are pedestrians allowed? Oh wait, is there a state prohibiting riding a bicycle or an electric bicycle on sidewalks? No. However, some local governments may have local ordinances. The RGVMPO has done an inventory of local ordinances relating to bicycle and pedestrians. And so we can share that with your communities, like, hey, we're aware Harlingen has XYZ, Los Fresnos just has X, over here we have Z, and like, just let you all know what local ordinances we may have. This is something else with standardizing. I know Andrew had worked on helping with a statewide 3-foot passing ordinance that it didn't get passed. So now it's like because it's not at a state level, it's on a local by local level, but 3 feet is the right distance to give in most of the communities here in the Rio Grande Valley, thanks to Hidalgo County and MPO's efforts and some of the communities in Cameron County. So the pedestrians are allowed to walk on the roadway or bike lane. No, they're not allowed to walk if an adjacent sidewalk is provided. And if there isn't a sidewalk provided, then a pedestrian walking along and on a highway shall walk on the left side of the roadway or the shoulder of the highway facing oncoming traffic. So I think that's something that's tricky. It's against traffic, basically. Cyclists have to ride with traffic in the direction of traffic, and pedestrians have recommended they walk against traffic to be seen and on the far way. So when is it allowable for cyclists to take the lane and when is it not? Well, if the person operating a bicycle is on a roadway, is moving slower, then they shall be as near as practical to the right of the curve of the edge of the roadway. But under the following conditions, bicyclists can take the full lane. If a person is passing another vehicle moving in the same direction, which can happen at traffic stops, thank you. If the person is preparing to turn left at an intersection, I know I like to get ahead of the vehicle so that they know I'm with them, or I stay directly in that line, but maybe there's some people turning left that line up behind me. But I use my hand signals. I'm like, I'm gonna turn left with you. And then when there's unsafe condition on the roadway, or if the lane is of a substandard width. So yesterday I shared this story. I think it's funny, but when I was biking, are you familiar with Boca Chica Boulevard? On Brownsville, it's one of the big state highways. It takes you to the beach, right? SpaceX, I suppose. But there's an area there. The sidewalk is like 4 feet, which means it's really for pedestrians and wheelchair users. It's not meant for cyclists, which should be 8 feet or higher in width. But But I was on the sidewalk because there weren't any pedestrians on the sidewalk. It's, 7 lanes of traffic at the time before they did the median project. And I'm biking on these sidewalks, and it's, if you've ever seen it or paid attention, they're like terrible sidewalks, right? They're like, I'm lucky if I have a ramp here or there. But there was a vehicle loading or unloading supplies at one of the restaurants in front of me. So ahead of time, I can see this vehicle was blocking the sidewalk and the driveway. So I look back, turn my hand signal in, I get off at the next ramp to take the lane for a little bit. And I had to just pass that vehicle that's blocking the sidewalk, right? And then I plan to get back on the sidewalk. Well, for that little distance, this truck was like beep, 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 beep. And I was just like, oh, I'm so sorry. Like, I'm not trying to impede traffic. I'm just trying to not stop my bicycle to get around this car, right? Or this loading van. So I go back on and I'm watching the truck and I'm just like, okay, bro, I'm so sorry. Homeboy pulls into a Whataburger, okay, 24 hours, 7 days a week restaurant, and he parks and he gets off the vehicle. And I'm like, why were you rushing me to get to a 24-hour restaurant, padron? Like, I'm mad, right? I didn't say anything at all to that guy at all. But it really bugged me because it wasn't my choice to leave the safe zone of the sidewalk and get into traffic. And, it wasn't a choice. I was trying to get from point A to point B. I wasn't on having a fun ride with my friends or, cruising for a cruising. Like I was just trying to get to my destination. And I really felt like my life is less important than this man's burger. And I get that it's Whataburger, but it's burger. And so, long story short, cyclists are allowed to take the lane for their own safety. And at sometimes, it's really not our choice. But yeah, I wish there had been a police unit close by, and I wondered if they would have helped me out, then, but it's okay. So what kind of, when a crash report is required, if the accident results in injury or death, if it's a parent extent of $1,000 or more, you see that $1,000 number coming over and over again. My bicycles have never been more than $350. So, who are we really protecting are privileged people with nice fancy bikes, but I guess it's really for the car. People can afford vehicles. But anyway, separate topic. I'm not going to address that at the state level. Yeah, the operator has the duty to give more information and to render aid. And I think that's something that people forget. That individual who had taken a right turn and kind of took me out in her right turn, she wanted to leave. She was upset that the officer stayed back and made her stay back, right? She did not even want to get a warning. She wasn't going to get a citation. She wasn't I could have hurt my hip for the rest of my life. And I'm under 35. That would have not been cool. And so I feel like that's something that, are we going to hold motor vehicle operators responsible for not rendering aid, even if it is a light accident and not a more serious injury? But that being said, I won't keep going into that. There's another link here on Bike Texas. This is more specific to cycling laws. I like to give this out to regular users. If you kind of scroll up, these are very bullet pointed. It's not like the drop down, what I've been showing you all as law enforcement or traffic or transportation officials. This is just more the bullet point synopsis. And I'll share this link out also, but I like to give this to my friends that are cyclists. You should know what your laws are, what you're required to do. But we'll go back to the presentation. I'm getting cold. Okay, so this is an old picture of me. I think this was 2013, 2014, I can't remember, but I'm with a traffic director and a planning director and another transportation official. But ultimately, we were talking about a road bag. If you're familiar with the Gladys Porter Zoo in Brownsville or the mini cultural district, we have these one-way lanes that go in each direction. And we did traffic counts. We measured kind of what the flow was. This was a school next to us. There's the zoo. We have a farmer's market. We have a federal courthouse. There's a lot of things going on in a small area. But using traffic counts and working with the other engineers, we put some traffic cones to kind of pilot a treatment. And so ultimately, we were able to make a road guide, and I'll show you a picture. So this is just an image of an old campaign we did. We had some videos through the city's page about safety. And so if that's something that you can do or want to do, or maybe we should do at a regional level, this is something that we're looking at. So wait for cyclists to pass, but here's that before and after. You can see here on the left, in 2014, there were 3 vehicular lanes moving in one direction, a really narrow 4-foot sidewalk with the end of curve, right? And then this is the zoo. And so again, that same building, we reduced it to 2 traffic lanes, did not at all, it affects traffic congestion. Like everybody kept moving slowly, there are no issues. But what we did was expand a buffer, widen the sidewalk, create another buffer. And then this is a really narrow bike lane, but right up ahead up here, it extends and it's protected with some armadillos and barriers. And so this is for a short distance of narrow bike lane. But again, it's really a transformation. It improved walkability. It improved people's safety, more kids walking to school, people jogging in the mornings or in the evenings. And so it took us some time, but it didn't affect traffic flow at all. But we'll fast forward. This is the historic Battlefield Trail. This is where we're talking more about active transportation network and initiatives. And so I'm going through some networks that I personally worked on. But that historic Battlefield Trail is 8.5 miles from that area by the zoo. And it goes all the way north to Palo Alto. And so Los Fresnos is on this end over here. And this is that Palo Alto National Historical Park. And so this is where that trail used to end. This has now been constructed to go further. We did have to work with our Texas Department of Transportation, with the National Park Service, because it's conservation land and historic conservation land, battlefield site. But we went through all the blessings and the red tape and the bureaucracy, and we were able to create that extension. On the other side here, Los Fresnos is near completion, if not fully completed, a section of their trail over here. And this is currently under the design phase. I'm gonna be honest, we're having like some issues with some private property owners up here in the Esquina. We'll see how that plays out because we do have to work with like obviously different land managers and owners. But ultimately this should be looking at a drainage canal. And so our goal as a region is to transform a drainage canal, next slide, that maybe looks something like this and make it a public safe space for walking and biking. So get off the roads, right? We don't want to be on the roads, but nobody built trails for me 20 years ago, so I got to build trails now, right? And so these are some areas too that we're looking to improve. That Brownsville to Los Fresnos connection I'm talking about is here on the left side, but we want to build this trail all the way to Laguna Vista and Port Isabel. And this is through National Park Service, U.S. Fish. I think I populate some little logos. This is a historic railroad corridor. If a feasibility study has been done, it was paid for by this Texas Federal Land Access Program grant. It was completed in April of 2022. We just applied for $10 million to do a segment of construction. That segment is looking to be in the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Corridor, connecting that South Texas Ecotourism Center up here. But eventually, Port Isabel's on board, Laguna Vista's on board, Cameron County's on board, Los Fresnos, Brownsville. And so the maintenance agreement, all kinds of other agreements and blessings need to happen. But hopefully we'll build this trail in like max 10 years, like 5 to 10 years. But I'm like after the federal money for these types of projects. And so this would transform some existing public land and transform it to be accessible to the public. And so there's a shade area, stops area. This is in Harlingen specifically. Thank you, City of Harlingen, for letting me in the space. Y'all are great partners. This is the Arroyo Trail. It connects the McKelvey Park, this thicket, which I believe is a World Birding Center. And then it goes all the way over here to this bogus board. And now this is under construction all the way to Dixieland Park. So this is a huge, huge, huge investment by the city. They got funding from the Legacy Foundation, which is a health foundation. I'll talk more about public health in a little bit. But we're trying to connect this Arroyo Trail to the city of San Benito, right? San Benito. So this is that extension. We were just looking at that existing trail. We'd like to connect it through the Arroyo and through these back roads to another existing trail, connecting our communities through off-road infrastructure to improve safety and increase physical activity. So this opens up waterways, public waterways, I should say, in some areas. I know there's a lot of private lands along the arroyo, but this is really great, not only for transportation, but for mental health, physical health. And so this is in Hidalgo County. I worked for 6 years in the city of Brownsville, and I worked for 2 years Cameron County wide. Now I'm working regionally, right, in Hidalgo and Star. So I'm just starting to get more of the projects and the plans from the Hidalgo County side, but there's some really good planning going on. McAllen is connected to FAR and San Juan through this Precinct 2 trail. They use more drainage infrastructure because we are a river delta. We have irrigation and drainage infrastructure galore. That's where our public easements are. And so they did utilize that space, and it is a heavily used trail. Next slide. I'm gonna show you now something that we're working on, Miguel, Johnny, Melanie. We're trying to develop an active transportation facility inventory through the whole region. So we have like our plan. This is something in our plan, standardizing data. And so we have some off-street trails. What we want to collect is surface material. Is it asphalt? Is it caliche? Is it concrete? A little bit more about those materials. Thank you. This is on-street infrastructure. So we have from and to. Is it a share road? Is it a bike lane? Is it protected? No, yes, no. Are there other comments as far as maintenance or street cleaning? Are there signage? Are there markings on the road because it's on street? And so we're asking our communities and our cyclists to edit this data so that we can update it in the background. We do have a draft website with some different links and different layers. It might or may not populate, it takes a minute. But this is something, again, now that we're working regionally, we're trying to standardize, we're trying to collect. This is all the data we currently have, and I know Miguel's been with the MPO for about 5 years now. So we kind of go through cycles of data collection, but Melanie just added a new trail in Combs that hadn't previously been submitted or edited before. And so we just want to show the most accurate reflection of that infrastructure. You can see there's a lot of gaps in the Harlingen area, especially in between these communities of Mercedes and Los Indios. Brownsville, obviously very heavily connected. The McAllen metro area, semi-connected. But you can see for as many road miles as we have, we really don't have that what we call active transportation facilities for walking and biking. So as much as I want to get people off the streets, we need to build safe spaces for people to be off the streets. But with that, we can go back to the slide. I'll be sending these links out because I'm like, I want you to know it. I want you to have it. I want you to share it. Sharing is caring. This is a list of the projects that we programmed. The RGVMPO was able to program $3.2 million, $3.3 million last year for projects in Elsa, Hidalgo, Edinburgh, Harlingen, Brownsville. This is a study, a plan, also a plan. This is infrastructure. And then you can see like those federal awards. They also have to do a contribution. It's based off of, their demographics and stuff. Up here are some previously funded from fiscal year 2019 and 2020. It's about $9.5 million worth of projects. We are required to manage those projects as far as like making sure they get used. With this federal funding, all of these communities have to what we call obligate funds in 3 years. And that poses a challenge because they can't like sit on a project, the land ownership issues. You can't take 2 years to negotiate and figure things out. You have to move quick or you lose the money and you lose your project. And we did lose a project recently in the city of Grande for sidewalks. So it's a shame because highway projects can take like 10 years, but we can. So I'm going to get to the last item and I promise I'll be quicker because this is what I know really well. These are the social determinants of health. And this is, about pedestrians and bicyclists for public health. But the physical environment, which is what we're talking about, the built environment, counts for 10% of our community's public health. Socioeconomic factors play a bigger role at 40%, healthcare and access to care, quality of care, 20%, and then behavioral health, behavior, diet and exercise, all that, about 30%. But here are our demographic data for 2018. And if you look at the United States compared to the state of Texas, Cameron County, And this is old data, so I need to update this at some point. I just copy paste, so it's very easy. But I have 3 circles here, and so we're just completely different. Everything from being Hispanic, the United States has 18%, Texas 39%. In Cameron County, we're almost 90%. Hidalgo has very similar statistics. When it comes to persons under 18 years old, we have a very young population. We have a very 73%, 75% language other than English spoken at home. Our graduate degrees, our levels for high school and for bachelor's, a lot lower than the other averages. Households with broadband internet, significantly lower. So all of these resources I'm sharing with you, I know I didn't have internet until I was 25. So this is not something that everyone has access to, the laws, the regulations, and everything. Now we're seeing that improve, but it wasn't the case pre-pandemic. So median household incomes, again, a lot cheaper. When I talk about the time that I had to bike to college, I used to share a vehicle with my siblings, and it was the worst. If you've ever had to do that, you didn't put gas in the car. I told you to be here at that time. I thought you were going to pick me up. No. It was nothing but arguments. It was easier for me to bike 8 miles to school. It was easier for me to bike 8 miles to school than to hate my siblings because we could never negotiate stuff. So low-income individuals is significant. Persons in poverty, very high compared to state and national averages. Those are those numbers I was looking at. Keep going. We have the 5 poorest, highest poverty rates in the state of Texas. More than 40% of our population is on the poverty level. 80% are either obese or overweight. 1 in 3 are diabetic. And that is significant too, because in the United States, 1 in 3 are projected to be diabetic in 2050. We're already there in Cameron County, in the Rio Grande Valley. We are already living in 1 in 3. So next slide. And 2 pictures I think could pop up. We have the highest rates of amputation due to diabetes in the state of Texas and nationally. I literally just lost a friend a few weeks ago. She had her ankle amputated, then later amputation from her knee. And ultimately, she lost her life to complications due to diabetes just less than a month ago. And so I know I'm not the only one that's been personally affected by this. This is something our entire community is affected by, with over 60% of our adult population being uninsured, high rates of morbidity, mortality, higher rates of cardiovascular disease and infectious diseases. And then we lack public hospitals and healthcare infrastructure. So this isn't just about the lives that we lose on the roads. This is about the lives that we lose to not enough physical activity or health. Next slide. Again, we're talking about poverty, people with disabilities. They exist in our communities. These are both from Brownsville, but this is what I used to see all the time when I'm biking. So it's not just for everyone, but we want to get started the kids, a preventative healthcare tool. If we can get the kids educated and feeling comfortable and safe, parents feeling safe with their kids on a bike, I think that's something that can really change our health statistics. So this is from Bike Rodeo, which I like to do. We used to have United Way sponsored book clubs on the trail. So we go on a ride and then read a book. Here we see the former police chief in Brownsville and the former fire chief in Brownsville riding a bike. This is from the Brownsville Herald because they did a campaign together to improve safety. These statistics here are from our Ciclovia, our open streets events in Harlingen and Viva Streets. And so some data was collected about how much physical activity people got when there's programming that it motivates people for physical activity. This is that countywide plan that I'm talking about. Hidalgo County is about to get started on one either later this year or early next year, but the goal would be to create something similar. What you see before you in blue is that on-street network. It's a big loop. It's for those road cyclists that are riding recreationally that they want to put in those 100 miles, which I don't get. But it's for everyone. Everything in red is off-street, right? These are like our regional trails connecting communities and stuff. And then in blue is the proposed kayaking trails, which we were actually surprised to get as part of this plan. But this kayaking trail, and I'll just briefly tell you because it's cool, is it's supposed to connect the World Birding Center in South Padre to the World Birding Center in Harlingen through the Arroyo. So these are goals. This is a proposed vision. It doesn't exist. It would connect a lot of public lands. It would highlight a lot of our natural geographic features. And all of the cities, 11 cities and the county are on board for this vision, but it's about money. And so we have those catalyst projects that I just showed you. And so those are kind of where we're getting started to get the ball rolling. But I know if I have to work 30 more years, this is what I'm working towards, you know. This is that off-street network separated with the other facilities. This is that on-street network separated. This on-street network is supposed to connect to the rest of the country. It's supposed to be like highway for cyclists. And then that's that kayaking route, which is super cool. And I want to hit this up. It's you know, we talked about traffic safety and saving lives. We talked about transportation. We talked about public health. It's also an economic generator. The Great Allegheny Passage connects Pennsylvania and Maryland. It costs $80 million to complete, but now it generates over $100 million in annual spending. Annual spending. So by creating this infrastructure, not only would it be good for our communities, it'd be good for our small businesses and for tourism. So people can kind of leave their money here and then go back home, right? So next slide shows a little bit more about overall 400 million from the state of Oregon, which is like a fraction of the size of Texas, for their bicycle tourism, right? Bicycle tourism, it's 23 million per year over here, and they tend to spend more on bicycle tourists. Even kayaking trails, I think it's really cool. Contribute 55 million in economic impact, right? And then with local and non-local expenditure, 103.9. I know a lot of you probably fish, kayak, spend some time in the water, so you know what they're talking about when they say local and non-local economic generators. This itself here, what you're seeing is a fact sheet. It was an economic impact study was done on 291 miles of trails and routes. If we built 120 miles of on-street, 93 miles of multi-use trails, blah, blah, blah. They did a study, 3 million more walkers, bikers, and bicyclists, more jobs, 70 million projected in annual out-of-county spending. That's from visitors. But I think more importantly for me, as a resident, as someone with family, family and friends that live here that I love, they found using data from one of those Ciclovia events that people who live near trails exercise 22% more than those who do not. So by bringing trails closer, even if we just get 22% more people to be physically active and to meet the recommended levels, there's a potential to save our community, our family and friends, $6 to $12 million a year in annual healthcare cost savings. That is what I see for my cousin's kids. My cousin's kids, right? My nieces and my nephews. We want to give them tools and access to infrastructure that helps them stay healthy. So next slide. It's a comprehensive approach. We're working on our active transportation plan with our transit development plan and with our highway plan. Next slide. This is like a highlight of our goals, which is connectivity, accessibility, and community health. All words that you've heard me say throughout this training. These are the different, like the work program. We have planning and design goals, strategies, policies and programs, education and encouragement, safety, and active tourism initiatives. Law enforcement training is where we're starting, right? That's our short-term goal. We have some bike share going on. There's some other things that we can do, but we're slowly approaching this as a region. I do manage another committee of planners and transportation officials, but from the communities, right? So this is the last slide, one of the last slides I'll show you. It's an existing bait shop, I believe in Rio Hondo or Arroyo City or something, right? And so I think it's really cool. It's local, it's been there for a really long time. But if we could generate more incentives or more use and get small business grants or small, low interest loans, they could serve a larger percentage of the community and give us more access, right? Because you have to trick me into working out. I better be having fun on a kayak or on a bicycle. I'm not just you're not gonna find me in the gym, you guys. So this is something that I think would be really fun if we could have and more accessible. But with that, that's all I have for you today. Do you have any questions? I'm going to answer them. Do you have any questions on that? I know I went through a lot of information really quick since our break. What do you think? Thoughts? We're just going to stare awkwardly at each other.
Lighting come with that, or is all things be date?
Lighting, well, it depends on where you're going. Some areas they do want it to be what do you call it, night friendly or habitat stargazing friendly and stuff like that. So in more rural areas, they want to keep it less, maybe sensor activated lighting. But
I think what they're going for now is more solar panel operated light. Because again, it's more about maintenance and what happens if there's no repairs. So depending on the jurisdiction, is depending on what those are going to be. So Harlingen being more urban, likely have more lighting. But maybe in Los Fresnos, because they have the National Park Service so close to them, maybe they want it a little bit darker on their outer community.
You get crime.
What?
Then you get crime and.
Crime? Oh, I don't think we're going to stop crime, are we? Is that the road to zero? Is that the road to zero? That's the road to zero, right? No, I mean, that's basically all I have for you today. Hopefully I gave you all some new information and not a bunch of information that you probably already knew. I really wanted to emphasize kind of what you can do you all are on the ground working, the reports of these individuals. But I want to show you that what you all do in your communities really does impact us on a regional level and more so on a state and federal level. So if you want to apply for more safety funds, or if you need a letter of support, or some people to come out and train or have a booth or table at your events, let us know. For now, we're giving you some bike lights and some helmets. Hopefully you feel motivated after my presentation to distribute those in your communities and help keep people a little bit safer. Other than that, yeah, we're going to try to keep these up and give you all more information. If you have any training available or materials that you think would find information on, I did put my cards out here on the table because I'd love for you to contact me and share any information and resources that you may have. But with that, we can kind of end the training.